Alafua, and welcome to you all. And I extend a very special welcome to our panel of speakers. We're honored to have with us today Alafua Mulitalo Eskia Solofa, who was the Vice Chancellor of the University of the South Pacific from the years 1992 to 2001. We also have with us Alafua Lemalu Lemi Taefu, a former campus manager of Alafua campus and currently the Associate Minister of the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment. We also have with us our very own Head of School of the School of Agriculture and Food Technology and Acting Campus Director, Alafua Campus, Associate Professor Mohammed Umar. We also have Alafua Pestar Desmond Lee Hang, himself the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Research at the National University of Samoa. And then we are very honored also to have Ms. Tima Leavai, who is the Principal Barrister and Solicitor from the Leavai Law Firm. Welcome indeed to you all. This year, 2018, is USP's Golden Jubilee year, having been established in 1968 with an initial cohort of 200 students. This forum examines USP's 5-decade evolution into the premier tertiary education provider it is today in the Pacific, focusing on how USP's growth influences development in the region. Here's a brief overview of USP's 50-year transformation. Student admissions grew from 200 in 1968 to about 35,000 as of November 2017. Program numbers also rose from 2 only in 1968 to more than 300 now at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels. Graduate numbers leapt from 49 only in 1971 to about 50,000 plus alumni all over the world as of 2017. The quality of USP's learning and teaching practices also grew with time, leading to quality graduates and increased research, rigor, and publications, some having won international recognition and respect. The shift from print to online mode has started and is continuing, with many courses and programs now delivered online. To date, USP has 27 international accreditations, with 6 programs internationally recognized. Another accreditation at institutional level is potentially and is eagerly anticipated from WASC, Senior College and University Commission, for its potentially endless benefits for USP. At regional campus level, where the count rose from 11 in 1968 to 12 currently, and where some campuses have undergone extreme makeovers, development is continuous, with each campus now endowed with world-class ICT infrastructure and stronger student support provisions more than ever before. So, since its foundation in 1968, USP underwent enormous growth at the levels of learning and teaching, its graduates, accreditation, research and publications, regional campuses, and student support. To what extent has this helped USP fulfill its ideal for its regional countries to achieve sustainable development? We'll now give the floor to Alafua Mulitalo Eskia Solofa for his views.
Thank you. Talofa Nisambulevnaka, and greetings to all and everyone who is able to watch this broadcast. First of all, before we forget, we are here to celebrate a beautiful occasion and a huge achievement on the part of USP for coming this far in its work. 50 years is a long time, and we congratulate the USP, President Administration, students, all faculty members, and everyone who has had anything to do with USP in the last 50 years. Our discussion topic is an ideal that USP might have, dreamt up at the time that the new countries of Pacific will need to achieve some sort of development, if not sustainable development, in the future. That's a noble goal. But as we all know, the economies of the Pacific are very much developing economies. And as such, this ideal of sustainable development is really work in progress. And I think myself that it will continue this way for a long time to come. Starting in the 1960s, early 1960s, the colonial administrators of the Pacific countries were beginning to return home. And Pacific Islanders were beginning to move in to take over the responsibility of running their own countries for the first time. They were to model their new countries in ways shown to them by the colonial administrators for which they have very limited knowledge or practical experience. And for that process, they needed to have men and women educated and trained to higher education and technical skills. And none of the Pacific Island countries at that time had the facility or the ability to provide higher education or technical training to that level. And that's how USP came about. In order for the new Pacific Island countries to develop, they needed to have educated and trained men and women to do the work. I think we can characterize the first 50 years of USP as a focus on learning and teaching, developing men and women to do the work that was set, I think we can say that, by the colonial administration. And it so happened that the colonial administration was already the world order at the time. The countries were becoming democratic, and Pacific Island countries were not to be accepted, and they wanted to develop democratic institutions and so on. And that, I would characterize, would have been the role of the first 50 years of USP to prepare the new Pacific Island countries as modern democratic states. The next 50 years is going to be equally important, if not more so. If the first 50 years have been characterized as learning and teaching, the next 50 years will have to be more understanding and learning of what we need and how we can deal with things ourselves. We have been following directions more or less in the last 50 years in how to set up democratic institutions. Sustainable development really implies knowing yourself, knowing your country, its ability, its limits, and its aspirations, the resources that are available, and so on for the future. And to be able to do that, we need to do that work ourselves. We need to look to USP to take the lead here, and I'm talking about researching the knowledge that is specific, that is inherent in the Pacific. We haven't done much of that in the last 50 years, and I would suggest very strongly that unless we do that, sustainable development will remain in the far distance for the future of USP countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Nephew Amutalo. Your views, please, Nemal Taifu.
Thank you, Alafua, and I wish to congratulate the university for coming this far. 50 years is not a short period, and I congratulate you for serving the Pacific that many years. I believe the decisions by our political leaders 50 years ago to establish a university, a regional university that served the needs of the Pacific was politically a correct decision. It was a responsive decision, and it was appropriate and timely. I believe they realized the needs of the Pacific and went ahead with the decision. And that decision inspired many of us. And even 50 years later, it should still be applauded. I sometimes pose the question as a politician myself. I sometimes ask the question, are the member countries of the university ready to move away from the original approach and move on to develop their national institution? I sometimes ask the question. And in order to clarify my response to that question, I am going to focus on relevancy of the university to the region. And I have 5 points to share with you. The university, the presence of the university in the Pacific is very strong, a very strong presence within the member countries. There's campuses, there's centers and sub-centers. In Samoa itself, there's a Alafua campus, and then we also have a campus in Savaii. So by having that prominent presence in the member countries, they are able to serve accordingly to the need of those countries. And from there, they respond to the main university, main campus in Fiji. In terms of responsiveness, this is a university that is willing to listen to what the region is saying. And then they respond and address those issues or those gaps in their programs in order to serve the region. There's over the years, we know that there were quite a number of regional universities in the world. Now I believe there's only 2 remaining at the moment, the University of West Indies and our University of the South Pacific. I still believe being still relevant today is the reason why we're still there. So I also congratulate the university for responding to the needs of the region and therefore be able to remain as one of the remaining regional university in the world. And then we also have Samoa through the years. They used to send scholarship students overseas, and when we go to New Zealand and Australia, it's their aid funding that sponsor these students. Now, because Australia and New Zealand and other countries are seeing the relevance of the USP, they are now sending students to the university and pay for the student themselves from their aid program. And also there's this sense of ownership. This is the only thing we have, the University of the South Pacific, and it's responding to the needs. And we own the university, and this is the only university that is willing to listen to us. Now, coming back to the national institutions, I still think we are in early stage of developing the national institution. And in terms of relevancy, I think the university is still serving that need for the Pacific. So make no mistake that the University of the South Pacific is there and was set up in the first place to be a sustainable institution and to serve the need of the Pacific and the individual member countries accordingly. So I thank you once again.
Thank you very much. The head of school, please, Professor.
Alafua. First of all, let me, on behalf of the campus here, welcome our distinguished forum speakers who are here with us to share their views on USP's 50-year journey. I was very happy to hear some of the wonderful comments, very positively highlighted by the 2 gentlemen on my right, and also some of the insight that they have given, what we need to do in future, and the relevance of the University of the South Pacific as opposed to having national universities. Now, they gave a very good overview in terms of the university itself. But let me focus more on Alafua, seeing that Alafua is one of the campuses. In fact, it was the second campus of the university when it first established in 1968. So I like to share and highlight some of the achievement of Alafua in the last 50 years. Now, in 1976 and earlier, we had South Pacific Regional College of Tropical Agriculture, Alafua campus. But in 1977, actually it became School of Agriculture. And the recurrent funding was provided by USP, and all the staff who were at the college then transferred to USP. And in 2005, it became School of Agriculture and Food Technology. Now, some of the developments that have taken during this period, between 1977 and up to now, I think the major one was the Australian aid, where we developed this particular library or conference room that we are sitting in was built under the Australian aid. Under the leadership at the time was our former Vice Chancellor, who is one of the speakers here. Under his leadership, actually, these buildings were built. And a lot of labs were done, the library, lecture rooms. So this was about over $5 million project. And after that, we also had the GTZ building, which houses all the labs, and for student science, teaching and learning. And also, I think some of you will remember that we have IRETA, the institute here, and the accommodation, with 3-story accommodation having 15 rooms, are also built in 1990 at this campus. And these are still being used for training regional participants who attend our conferences. Now, let me say a little bit about the research that we have accomplished and capacity building. You would know that I'll talk about the local staff members and students. One of them was Dr. Alafua, who was recently Trade Commissioner in New Zealand. He was trained under this program, USAID spread program, and then the late Malcolm Hazelman, he was also trained under that program. And then we had Stephen Hazelman, and we had who was the other person? Well, Tolo, Josefa, and David Hunter, who is the CEO. They were all trained here at Alafua, but the two later gentlemen, they were trained in the EU PrEP project. So a number of very senior officials actually benefited through the capacity development. And among the projects, for SPREAD, South Pacific Regional Agricultural Development Project, funded by USAID, that was actually a major one for Agricultural Liaison Officer Network, and we also had so many other trainings, publications, TAs, who actually were located at Alafua to assist the regional students who were studying here. And then the EU PrEP project, Pacific Regional Agricultural Program, we had 5 scientists based here at Alafua at IRETA, and they were involved with farming systems, they were involved with tissue culture, and one of the projects was, of course, the erection of that IRETA accommodation that I mentioned earlier, and then atoll agriculture, and biometrics and statistics. That's the one that David Hunter was actually trained in the postgraduate program. And then for the institute itself, what it did many things in terms of production of many publications and also technical bulletins. And then the USP also assisted the government here on the Taro Leaf Blight in 1993. And then we developed the POPA for organic agriculture in response to the climate change impact. This is Pacific Organic Producers Association. And we also wrote the first organic certification and marketing for the Pacific, and that's being now developed. And we also established the institute, the International Society for Tropical Root Crops Pacific branch, that is looking at the development of root crops in the Pacific. And accreditation, of course, that has been mentioned. And when it comes to partnership, we had been working with FAO, training women. In fact, we would have trained about 1,000 women in Tonga, in Samoa, in Cook Islands, Vanuatu, and Solomon Islands. And with the MNRE, we have published some books, which are actually displayed here. This is, again, a partnership with local government organizations. And again, I wish to say that during this period, we have done a lot of work in Samoa. Whawhatailawa.
Thank you, Professor Omar. Please, Alafua Pesta, your views.
Alafua, first of all, I'd like to congratulate USP on achieving this 50th milestone. With regards to our discussion, while sustainable development is something that is yet to be achieved by regional countries, I think USP should be congratulated for achieving its mandated role in the maintenance, advancement, and dissemination of knowledge through teaching, consultancy, and research, as well as the provision of appropriate, relevant, and quality education and training that is responsive to the HR needs of member countries for their sustainable development. By this I mean it is fair comment to say that more than 70% of the workforce in Samoa and the region are USP graduates. The majority of them are in key strategic government positions of influence. They are also embedded in NGOs and the private sector in member countries. And I think in going forward into the next 50 years, USP needs to use this as leverage for its own development purposes. In terms of sustainable development, USP should be proud of its achievement thus far, but as the world of work, as we know, changes rapidly, and we as a sea of islands, with our blue Pacific identity, continue to face climate challenges. USP needs to be continually responsive, transformative, and relevant to the needs of our region and our cultures, and also our Pacific people. After.
Thank you very much, Pesta.
Congratulations, USP. As a graduate and alumni member of the university, I feel very proud. I believe USP has contributed to a considerable extent to its member countries' efforts to achieve sustainable development. University over the 50 years have produced graduates who have returned to their countries and formed the backbone of the civil service. And as my colleague has mentioned, 70% of the civil servants in Samoa are made up of USP graduates. And that's a tremendous achievement in itself. The graduates from USP have also benefited the private sector. I'm in the private sector right now. And sustainable development is an ongoing process, and Pacific Island countries are still striving to achieve sustainable development. The challenges are very difficult, but having an educated workforce, which USP has contributed to, provides hope for a bright future for Samoa and its member countries, and all of USP member countries. I've identified 3 ways in which USP has contributed to achieving sustainable development in the Pacific. It has taught the people of this region the knowledge and skills required to conduct changes that can achieve sustainable development. I refer to the courses and training that USP has developed over the years to cater for the social and economic challenges that we face. For example, they've created special courses to cater for the challenges of climate change. And I think that's very important because it's an issue that's bothering the Pacific people. Economic models have also been altered to suit our status as small island states. USP has also created training and courses which cater for improved social practices and reforms. We have held a lot of more consultative processes than before, and USP has had courses that cater and prepare its graduates to come back and implement these. I'm very pleased to say that I was a student in the first ever School of Law course when it was set up in 1994. And that is also something that's very important because USP has seen the need to strengthen the rule of law in South Pacific. This is why it set up the School of Law. And legislations and amendments always have been amended and changed. Law is an evolutionary process. We must change our laws to cater for the challenges that we have. And the School of Law of USP has catered exactly for that. When we started in 1994, there were only about 50 students. But I understand from the data from the website, there are 1,017 students. Now, there have been some talk, even in my country, in Samoa, that we may have too many lawyers. But believe me, you'd rather have more lawyers than offenders. And it is a sign of a learned society when we have more graduates, not necessarily law, but any graduate. So USP has contributed to a considerable extent in improving the overall general livelihood and standard of living, and as well as the education level of people of Samoa and all of the Pacific. So USP has prepared the countries to cater for ways that we can achieve sustainable development. USP has also provided courses which has fostered the shift of development paradigms and development models in the Pacific. USP has continued to evolve the new programs and come up with training courses that enable a shift in thinking of our people. Because we need to, in order for us to achieve sustainable development goals, we must change the way we think and the way we come up with methods, tools, and frameworks we require to achieve these goals. Last but not least, USP has come up with years of lessons and practices to advance regional sustainability. We have catered all our courses to enable the graduates to come up with support services that can contribute to their government to come up with ways to achieve sustainable goals. And I am proud to have been a contributor to the education system of USP by tutoring some of its courses. USP, we must keep the momentum going. We must continue and sustain the system that you've set up using the latest technology, the latest methods of ICT to educate your students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So to just briefly summarize the sentiments expressed, the panel has praised the university for the fact that it has educated leaders in the past 50 years. It has served its original mandate to do so at the time when the colonial masters were departing from the Pacific Island nations. It has also, as we have heard, prepared the Pacific Islanders to be modern democratic states. The university, as we have heard, has enabled to a great extent the sustainable development of its island nations, and Alafua campus in particular has contributed a lot to the development not only of the whole region, but particularly Samoa as a whole. There was indeed some paradigm shifting occurring amongst the regional island countries in terms of meeting global goals in our own local ways. So I thank you very much to the prestigious panel of speakers, and that brings us to the end of this forum discussion.